I'm just a bill, yes I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Whirling and slow, long journey to the capital city. It's a long week while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be alone. Maybe at least I hope and pray that I'll be, but today I'm just you.
Good morning, this is Bill Scher on the LiberalOasis radio show, WHMP, News, Information, and the Arts. Bad news in the economy, unemployment up again, another loss of 84,000 jobs. I think we're up to 600,000 lost jobs for the year. Unemployment now at 6.1%. The misery index, remember that? The misery index, unemployment plus inflation, 17-year high of 11.7%. I believe that was the last Bush administration to hit that mark. Keep it in the family. The good news, premiering Monday night, the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC, 9 p.m., following Keith Olbermann's countdown. Don't be surprised if Rachel, the Valley's own Rachel Maddow, can not only build on Keith Olbermann's rating success, but if she can come close to or even beat Larry King on CNN, that is going to be a revelation in television news. The notion that you could have a liberally minded yet sharp and informative show is going to snap necks amongst news executives in this country. So certainly give Rachel her support and do yourself a favor and watch Rachel Monday at 9 p.m. Of course, the big news this week, the Republican National Convention. I think you may recall the presidential nominee is John McCain. You might have forgotten that in all the Sarah Palin hubbub. Now, I mentioned last week we previewed her selection on last week's LiberalOasis radio show, and I noted that her pick was, I believe I said it was the stupidest thing that McCain has done in this campaign. And I stand by those remarks, despite all of the agita, all the skittishness that liberals had at watching her, knock out a solid speech on Wednesday. Because I know all you liberals out there, you freak out at the drop of a hat. But this is no time to be in panic mode. This is game time. But let's look at this objectively. I want to give you the clearest analysis that I can. I had said last week that the selection of Palin, someone who has been governor for less than 2 years and has no foreign policy experience whatsoever, after a summer where John McCain made his central argument against Barack Obama of a lack of experience, particularly in national security, that the pick of Palin would make McCain look hypocritical, look political, and would take away his ability to continue making what had been his central argument. That is true. You have not seen the McCain campaign make as an argument that Barack Obama is inexperienced. In fact, a McCain aide told the Politico they're going to have to revisit their tagline, dangerously inexperienced. What you saw in this convention was an attempt to completely scrap that argument. And try to take a piece of that change argument. Because they recognize that if they flog experience for the next 2 months, that was a sure loser. Every time a presidential candidate has tried to make experience the issue, Nixon tried it on Kennedy, did not work. George H.W. Bush tried it on Bill Clinton, did not work. The direction of our country always is going to trump length of resume as long as the candidate is seen as crossing the threshold of being plausibly ready for the job. And after Obama's been put through his paces for 19 months, sure, your hardcore Republican partisan's going to say he's not experienced enough, although they'll probably stop now. But everyone has seen him perform on the world stage, not just the national stage, but the world stage at this point. He fills the role in the eyes of most. So that argument's out the window. So they're having to come up with a brand new argument. And as if you could stay awake through the entirety of John McCain's speech last night, you could see that they haven't really sharpened that message. They're trying to throw out the word change a lot. They're trying to claim that he's made change before. But did you hear a vision of how to revitalize the economy? Did you hear a vision how they would approach the economy differently than the last 8 years? Did you hear a foreign policy vision that was at all different from the last 8 years? You did not. When Sarah Palin spoke, amidst all the sarcasm and condescension and one-liners, did you talk about any issues? Was there any type of reassurance that she is ready to step in as commander-in-chief on day one? I think she proved she was ready to be Rush Limbaugh's guest host on day one. But commander-in-chief, I'm not so sure. Now, she rallied the base. McCain is going to have more grassroots volunteers than he had previously. Keep in mind that Obama's base got rallied as well, while the RNC, the Republican National Committee, raised about $1 million after the Palin speech. The Obama campaign raised $10 million. So both bases got energized after that. But if you are an undecided, moderate, swing voter in a swing state, and your first impression of a vice presidential candidate is nothing but hate, nothing but attacks, and no explanation of what her own view of how to fix the economy and how to salvage our moral standing globally is, if you don't get that, are you going to be impressed? Some early indications from focus groups in Nevada and Michigan say otherwise, that the independents and the Clinton supporters, who are now undecided, were not terribly impressed by Palin. The final verdict, I suppose, will be when we look at the polling next week after this has all been processed. I would not get hung up on polls this week, or last week for that matter. Let both conventions settle in the public's mind and see where things stand next week, to the extent you can trust polling, because everyone's making assumptions on turnout and demographics and no one really knows. But that's the best read we're going to have. I suspect that Palin is only going to work as a base motivator, but that does not get John McCain over 45%, let alone 50%, which is what he eventually needs. So do not be rattled by Palin's blast of snidery. And this is the conservative problem right now. They cannot take any responsibility. They don't talk personal responsibility when it's somebody else, particularly someone who's not white. But when it comes to their own personal responsibility, did you hear anybody in that Republican hall that said, we screwed this up? This issue we got wrong, and we recognize that, and therefore we're going to do it differently next time. You got a little bit from McCain of we, the royal we. We didn't control spending. But that's the kind of we in terms of somebody else. As if the occasional pork project in, say, Alaska is what is fundamentally wrong with the state of the economy. As if that is why our infrastructure is dilapidated. That is why we have not invested in clean energy. As if that is why we don't have health care. As if that is why we're not creating jobs for the 21st century economy. That we're not educating our kids to be prepared for the 21st century economy. There was none of that recognition that the last 8 years have been wasted on that front. That our foundation has been weakened over the last 8 years. None of that. So if they can't look clear-eyed at the failures of their own ideology and adjust, I'm not saying they have to become liberals. That's not obviously a realistic thing. But I would suspect in the eyes of an undecided voter, you want to see some understanding of what went wrong previously, and that you have the spine to own up to it and adjust. That's what being a maverick is supposedly all about. You know, John McCain said in his speech last night, it doesn't matter what idea, who has the good idea, Democrat or Republican. Did he offer a good idea that came from a Democrat in his speech last night? That might have been bold. That might have been mavericky. But he did not have the courage or the interest to look in the eyes of those Republican delegates and say, here's a good Democratic idea that we should all be embracing.